Protecting the human rights of children begins with securing their legal identities. A universal and responsive civil registration and vital statistics system facilitates the realization of human rights of all individuals. In preparation for the 2021 Ministerial Conference on Civil Registration and Vital Statistics in Asia and the Pacific, several organizations collaborated to hold a series of consultations and a forum with children and youth from the region. The discussions aimed to learn about their experiences and perspectives on birth, marriage, and death certification. It also intended to get the commitment of governments to the Regional Action Framework on Civil Registration and Vital Statistics. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, different child-friendly tools and processes were set up to meet the specific contexts of the participants. Participants from 10 countries were consulted via online group meetings or face-to-face interviews or focus group discussions. From these consultations, an online forum was held last May 29, 2021. 61 child and youth delegates attended the regional event.
Turn on your videos.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you all.
Good morning.
Hello.
Terima kasih.
Hello. Since 2012, we've worked with countries in Asia and the Pacific to help getting everyone in the picture. And it's so important for us to understand better why it's difficult to get registered and what it means for families and for children and for youth who are not registered. In November this year, government ministers who are responsible for civil registration and vital statistics in Asia and the Pacific will hold a large conference to discuss how to make sure that every birth and death is registered so they can make better decisions for the benefit of everyone. Your voices will make them work harder to get everyone in the picture and registered.
A child safeguarding policy and protocol was implemented in all online and offline activities.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amihan, and I'm your child safeguarding officer for this afternoon. If there's any concern, please feel free. You can send a chat, or you can also use the numbers in the technical notes that you can send me a message through Viber or a WhatsApp.
The delegates had access to guide questions, adult mentors, and interpreters. Online or offline, the participants agreed registration is their gateway to government services. However, they found institutional weaknesses that prevent access to these services.
My parents did not register my birth on time. They were not Thai nationals and did not speak the language. They were not aware of the errors and blanks in my Thai birth certificate. Later on, I applied for an ID card in 2 district offices, where I was insulted for the errors in my document. Despite having a birth certificate, some officials told me they don't have my data in the civil registration system. Although my birth date makes me eligible to apply for a Thai ID card, I still do not have one. This has made travel difficult. Without a driver's license and other documents, it will be hard for me to get through checkpoints. I can get arrested.
Just to get my national identity card, I went to one department after another. I wrote letters to multiple officials to explain how I was placed in an orphanage as a child without relevant documentation. I felt like nobody cared or wanted to assist me. In 2016, I had to travel back and forth Anuradhapura and Colombo for almost 3 months, just to process my passport. I was migrating for work. I paid lots of money to many government officials.
Social barriers also hinder them from accessing CRVS. Logistical and financial costs are expensive for many of them.
One factor that is affecting why some of the children do not have birth certificate upon your birth. If you didn't register in the hospital or you have a late registration on birth certificate, you have to pay for it. The fee costs too much. If you want to authenticate birth certificate, it costs maybe 100 plus. If there is a mistake in your birth certificate, just like your birth date or your name. Every word costs, I think, 1,000 pesos here in the Philippines.
When my son was born, I registered my child and specified my name and his biological father's name as his parents. At the time, his father and I were still in a relationship, but we were not married. We separated and I married a different man. My husband and I agreed to replace my son's last name with my husband's last name. When I went to the registration office, I was told that I can only do this if the biological father will give his consent. In the end, I did not get exactly what I wanted. Instead, my son's last name was changed from his biological father's to my last name, which is my father's surname. This taught me a very important lesson about registration. It is not something you can change whenever you feel like it. There are processes and procedures that we need to comply with for changes to be officially recognized.
People from poor, rural, and remote areas also do not have sufficient information on the need to register everyone.
People is back or communities still do not know the importance of registration.
तो उन्होंने बताया कि आप अपने वालिद का डेथ सर्टिफिकेट लेकर आइए। तो उस टाइम अंदाज़ा नहीं था कि ये कहाँ से बनेगा या किस तरह से इसका सारा काम है जो हमें मिलेगा डेथ सर्टिफिकेट। तो उन्होंने बताया कि आप हुकूमती रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑफिस जाइए, वहाँ से आपको मिल जाएगा डेथ सर्टिफिकेट। जब हम उधर गए तो उन्होंने मुझे बताया और मेरी वालदा को कि मेरा तो अभी बर्थ रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं हुई। तो उस बर्थ रजिस्ट्रेशन में और उस डेथ रजिस्ट्रेशन में तकरीबन 1 साल लग गया, जिसकी वजह से मेरी 1 साल की पढ़ाई छूट गई। मेरा स्कूल में एडमिशन नहीं हुआ, मेरी आगे क्लास नहीं चल सकी, मैं अपनी दोस्तों से पीछे रह गई। आज तक मुझे इस बात का अफसोस होता है कि मैं पीछे रह गई और मेरी पढ़ाई छूट गई।
For some, lack of registration has been an intergenerational problem. It has reinforced social inequalities, especially for participants who want to get education and employment that their parents never had access to.
In Thailand, the birth certificate is the important. If we, without birth certificate, cannot find a job, have a Thailand ID number, is can write a scholarship.
I lived in the streets of Kathmandu as a child. Both my parents lacked knowledge about the importance of having a birth certificate, so they never got me registered. I missed out on various opportunities as well as basic rights guaranteed by such certificates. Without identity documents and education, I was forced to work in the streets as a rag picker. I married at the early age of 14 to a boy who was also living in the streets. Now, we have a 5-year-old daughter and are living in a rented room. I was also not able to file a birth certificate for my child because me and my husband do not have any supporting documents such as a citizenship certificate or marriage certificate. My biggest fear in life is for my daughter to suffer the same fate as mine due to lack of vital registration certificates.
I was brought into an orphanage when I was around 8 months old. I was issued a temporary birth certificate, certified with signature and seal by the Assistant General. But this document was not recognized by the leading schools in Gala, Sri Lanka. Because of that, I had to settle with other less prestigious schools.
Without certificate, we do not find a job, go to school, and travel.
These registration difficulties also reflect a social exclusion based on one's identity, race, or ethnicity.
Cannot get legal documents. Our families, they did not recognize us, so can't make legal documents for us.
Many Rohingyas has entered our country. They have no birth certificate of Bangladesh. Bangladesh will not give them birth certificate.
เกี่ยวกับเด็กนะคะการทำใบเกิดของเด็กคือ
There is the parents who are Cambodian and Thai. They already checked their DNA already, but the test is said that they have Thai blood like only 40%, so that children cannot prove that they are Thai, and then they cannot get the birth registration.
From the series of consultations and the online regional forum, children and youth from Asia and the Pacific identified recommendations to submit to the 2021 Ministerial Conference on Civil Registration and Vital Statistics.
Ya, baik. Kalau menurut saya,
Thank you for the opportunity. to provide training to personnel in charge is very important. Sometimes some personnel have less motivation due to low level of pay, and therefore we need to look at the level of pay and probably the salary and also the preparation on the end of the personnel itself to be able for them to have a better motivation.
What about the abandoned children? So I'm basically pointed out on behalf of them also. They don't have about their parents. So is it means that no rights to apply for any?
They also recommended governments to assist in the registration of vulnerable groups and guide concerned units, hospitals, and families in performing tasks related to processing death certificates. The children and youth from Asia and the Pacific also reiterated the need for information dissemination at the community level.
So maybe we need to find the right wordings that can move them. So we need to force them to put their foot in our shoes.
The forum participants set up a smaller group to work on their video statement about birth, marriage, and death registration.
You deserve to have a birth certificate. You deserve to have access to education and health services. We've heard you and we will stand by you. Your joint statement will be an important voice that will be heard by ministers and other developmental partners at the ministerial conference. I also want to say how sad I am that not all of you could make it to the ministerial conference in person. Because of COVID restrictions, many of you are going to have to attend remotely. Nevertheless, at the very least, your video statement will be heard and appreciated by all. And I will make sure personally that your voices are heard.
As the country consultations and online forum proved, children and youth want to be involved in bringing changes in society, even in the middle of a pandemic. The work in getting everyone registered continues. Listening to the voices of children and youth and giving them the space to participate in decision-making processes will help us achieve our goal to have universal and responsive civil registration and vital statistic systems that facilitate the realization of rights of all people in Asia and the Pacific.